All right, this is going to be Chapter 2, Part 2. Major communicative milestones in infancy and toddlerhood. Children achieve certain language and communication milestones at roughly the same age in roughly the same order across the communities of the world. So kids are going to say their first word at about the same time. They're going to start babbling at about the first time. They're going to start combining words at about the same time in pretty much every language in the world. We've got major stages of vocal development, the phonation stage, where we've got infants, and this is really early on, are just kind of making noises. It could be a burp, it could be a sound, a cry. That's kind of what they're able to do. And then really quickly, about 2 months, I think I talked before that it's tough as a parent until about the 2-month time when you don't get a lot. You don't get smiles, you don't get sound, you don't get laughter. But right around 2 months, a lot of that starts to change. And one of the things that changes is you get the goos and coos. The goo and the goo start to come out as they start to play with their voice a little bit. You mostly get vowels coming, but we get some vocal play happening with gooing and cooing at 2 to 3 months. At 4 to 6 months, we start getting some expansion going on. So we start getting some not nouns. We start getting some consonants. We start getting vowels combined. A lot starts to happen. And then within that moves us to canonical babbling. So we get the ma, 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 da, 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 ba, 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 where we get sort of the same sound going over and over again. And then at 9+ months, we get variegated babbling, which is going to be, different combinations of ma, da, ga, ba, da, ba. And jargon, which is going to be really speech-like babbling, where they might go on for really long times and even take turns, like they'll babble, you'll babble, they'll babble, you'll babble, and they'll have changes in pitch and phrasing, and it'll sound just like speech. But jargon is just sort of that made-up babbling, but very much speech-like in how they present it. We also get emergence of intentionality here. So, pre-intentional communication is the crying, the burping, things like that. With intentional communication, we get where they become attuned to the referential signals of others and begin to incorporate their own intentional gestures to direct others' attention. So they can start to babble to get our attention. They can start to point at things. And that gets pretty exciting. Transition to symbolic representations. Again, words are really arbitrary symbols, with the exception of some onomatopoeic words that sound like what they are, like buzz for a buzzing sound. They don't directly signal the concepts they represent. So again, a chair is not called a chair because of the sound a chair makes, or we just completely made it up for most of our words. And what's amazing is that children start to store lexical entries. So they not only have to have the word stored in their brains, but they have the word sounds, the word's meaning, and then also the word's part of speech. So where can that word go in a sentence? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? And here, we're going to start getting a transition from non-symbolic to symbolic communication. So they're going to start to understand words, again, at about 6 months. And right around that 12-month stage, they're going to be able to start to say their own words. So approximate age of first word is 12 months. Your book talks about 3 components that make a true word. Number one, it's got to have clear intention and purpose. It's got to have recognizable pronunciation, so it's got to be at least close to what the actual word is for it to count as a word. And it's got to be used consistently and in context beyond the original context. So are they able to call their cup, like do they just call it a cup one time, or every time they see a cup are they able to say the word cup? All right, then we know it wasn't just some random accident. It's used consistently and in different contexts when they see different cups going on for it to be truly a first word. We also get to see achievements in form. So we get an expressive lexicon. So they're actually have an expressive vocabulary beginning at the 12-month level, and by 16, 18 months they're going to have 50 words or so in their expressive vocabulary. They're going to have single and multi-word utterances. Usually two-word combinations are going to come about 18 months of age. And they're going to start to use, after that, some grammatical morphemes. So they're going to add plural S onto things. Cat will become cats if they see more than one. And then they'll start using ing is another early grammatical morpheme that they'll use for run to running. And once those morphemes come in, that's going to increase their mean length of utterance. So mean length of utterance refers to the average length of a child's sentence units or utterances. So if they say cat, you would give them credit for cat, which would be 1 MLU. But if they say cats, they get credit for 2 morphemes because it's cat plus the plural S on it, marking that it's more than one cat. And that mean length of utterance is really important. At age 1, children usually have an MLU of 1, that they're only saying one word per utterance. At age 2, they usually have an MLU of 2, where we've got 2 morphemes per utterance. And then age 3, we're going to have 3 or more. And then age 4, there's going to be 4 or more MLUs per utterance at least. And then it's going to really skyrocket after that. Children are going to go through vocabulary spurts, also known as word spurts, naming explosions, a remarkable increase in the rate of vocabulary acquisition. So they're going to go through a period where they only have certain words, and then during certain times, they're going to have these vocabulary explosions where they go from, 1 word to 25 words to 50 words to 100 words to 250 words pretty quickly. And then some important ideas here are going to be underextension and overextension. Underextension is when children apply newly learned words to specific reference rather than to a category of references. So if a child calls their family dog a dog, but doesn't call anything else a dog, so other dogs are not a dog, only our dog is a dog, that's an underextension because you're not using it to the whole category, you're just using it to the one specific thing. Overextension is the opposite, where your dog's a dog, other dog's a dog, but also cats are dogs, squirrels are dogs, right? Every animal is a dog. So you're overextending that word in a way that's not appropriate. Achievements and use. So all of a sudden kids are able to do lots of different things, use speech for lots of different things. They've got instrumental speech, which is requests to satisfy their own needs. I want that. Actually that would be more a request to satisfy my own needs might be like more milk. Regulatory, giving a directive to others, maybe stop doing that. A personal interactional is being able to share feelings. I like ice cream. Heuristic, being able to ask questions. Where mommy? Imaginative, being able to actually pretend they're a superhero or pretend they're a doctor or something else. Informative, to be able to give information. 3 years old. right? But they really aren't able to, until they're about 4, they're going to really lack skills in conversation. So they might be able to do all these things, but it's going to be sort of one sentence at a time. They're not going to be able to have a lot of back and forth in the conversation at all. So, what'd you do in school today? I played, right? And that's kind of all you're going to get. All right. We're going to have expressive phonology. So we've got phonological representations where children are going to have to start to learn all these different speech sounds, right? They're going to have some of the earlier sounds are b, 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 m, maybe p, 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 w, w, right? So they're going to have these sort of ideas in their head about what these sounds are, and then they're going to then attain the specific phoneme, so they'll be able to make those sounds. And they're going to exhibit normal phonological processes. So at the very beginning, a normal phonological process would be final consonant deletion, where they're going to leave off the end of words. We've got reduplication, where they might repeat the sound. So a bottle would be baba, daddy would be dada, mommy, mama. We're just repeating the sound. We've also got consonant harmony, where sounds are going to go together. So a doggy might be a doddy, where we're kind of combining sounds. Whatever that first sound is, we're just going to make it that second sound as well. It's not going to be, so reduplication is where we're repeating the consonant and the vowel. Consonant harmony is with doddy, right? I'm saying doggy, but I'm getting a daw-dee. I at least am changing the vowel, but my consonant is still duplicated. Consonant or cluster reduction, right? Strawberry might be tallberry. Thank you might be thank you. And then we've also got liquid gliding, where we're taking an R or an L and turning it into a W. So really might be wee. Red might be wed. Just in sort of an easier way. R's and L's are harder to make and aren't made till later as they get older. So here's that sort of overall achievements in speech. So those earliest phonemes to come are going to be p, 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 m, 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 b, 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 n, and w, 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 w sound. And then the sounds at the end are going to be the z, the j, or the, yeah, and then the v, th sounds are going to come late, and j, as in like leisure, are going to come super late. And then do they even have, I don't even have R and L on here, which are going to be 2 of the latest sounds as well. All right, achievements in form. So your book talks about a difference between grammatical morphemes and derivational morphemes. So grammatical morphemes are morphemes that change the word in a way that just adds more information to that word. So 1 cat is cat, 2 cats is cats, run and running. So you're still talking about run, but you're just changing the time sequence in running, right? Run is just a word. Running means it's happening right now. Whereas derivational morphology might actually change the category of the word. So if you take work, which is a verb, and change it and add on an er, worker, that actually turns into a noun. So it changes the class of the word. It changes the syntax of the word. Also, if you go from happy to unhappy, right, that actually changes the meaning of the word. So therefore, that would be derivational morphology. So it changes meaning, whereas grammatical morphemes just add some information onto the meaning of the word. Kids also learn copula and auxiliary verbs. So the copula is where be or other forms of be, is, am, is the main verb. So I am Paul, right? He is Paul. It's going to be copula where, that is the verb. On auxiliary verb is where the be is the helping verb. So I am carrying Paul. He is carrying Paul, right? So the real verb is carrying, and the am or the is going to be the helper verb. Both the copula and the auxiliary can be contracted or uncontracted. So I am Paul is uncontracted. I'm Paul is contracted. He is Paul is uncontracted. He's Paul is contracted. Auxiliary, right? I am carrying Paul can be I'm carrying Paul. Contracted. Auxiliary, he's carrying Paul, where I'm just contracting that versus uncontracting. And kids start to get really complicated sentences. They'll go from just subject, verb, object. So, right, Daddy is home, and they're going to start adding on subject, verb, object, and adding on an adverb. So, Daddy is home now, right? Subject, verb, complement, adverb. So, the baby is sleeping now, right? Subject, auxiliary verb, adverb. Baby is eating now, right? So we start to get these complicated sentences are going to start, usually around age 3 or so. We're going to get more and more complicated with how kids are going to be able to speak. Achievement in content. Lexical development is kind of amazing. How quickly it can take place, how quickly children can learn words. This idea is known as fast mapping. The initial exposure to a word accompanied by the rapid acquisition of general sense of its meaning. So kids hear a word once or twice and they're able to immediately then learn it and use it themselves. There aren't many things in life that we can do that are so complicated and only, hear it once or twice and boom, I know how to do it. So that concept is known as fast mapping. And the idea that decontextualized language aids in understanding through the incorporation of and reliance on shared knowledge, gestures, intonation, and immediately present situational cues. All right, so we talked about how contextualized language is like, ooh, I want that. Like, that's in front of me, I want that. Whereas decontextualized language is going to be talking about something that's not in front of us. So a child asking if we're going to go to Grandma's for Christmas next year, right, that's going to be decontextualized because maybe we're just at home having breakfast and it's the summertime. Are we going to go to Grandma's for Christmas? Right, that's going to be decontextualized. It's going to be, there's completely nothing there. Right, we've got shared knowledge. I'm going to have to know who Grandma is. The child knows who Grandma is, but she's not in the room. It's not Christmas time, right? But they're still able to think about it and talk about it. Achievements in use. New additional functions of language. So kids are going to have conversational skills. They're going to be able to take turns in the conversation. They'll be able to maintain a conversation. So, right, keep talking about the same thing. They'll be able to present topics, so they'll be able to start their own conversation. They'll be able to organize information. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a place. There's a character, and then also personal versus fictional. So personal can be either something that happened to them or something that happened to a friend of theirs that they're going to relay to you, and then fictional, where they're just going to make up a story. All of these are pretty complicated abilities that, again, kids are going to start to be able to do. achievements in speech. So kids are going to start to be able to master their phonemes. There's going to be phonological process suppression, right? So we talked about final consonant deletion, and then all of a sudden those ending consonants show up, right? So that's going to be that phonological process will go away as they suppress it, and they learn the rules that you need to add on endings to word. And we've got systematic deviations, so weak syllable deletion. So, telephone might become phone, or you're only going to say the part of the word that is in the strong syllable. You're going to start to learn to say the whole word. Cluster reduction, again, tallberry, you're going to start to learn to say strawberry. Liquid gliding, taking the W or the L to an R. At some point, the child's going to be able to make that R. TH to an S, so thank you, being thank you. Eventually, the child's going to learn to make that TH sound and suppress that phonological process. We've got achievements in emergent literacy. Emergent literacy is the earliest period of learning about reading and writing, right? So kids naturally learn how to speak from hearing others, and they're able to speak, first very childlike, and then as they get older, more and more adult-like. Reading and writing, however, is not nearly as natural. And so kids can't just pick it up on their own so easily. There has to be a learning process involved there and a little bit of teaching. Phonological awareness describes the child's understanding of a sensitivity to the sound units of oral language, namely the series of larger and smaller units that make up speech, phonemes, syllables, and words, right? So a child becomes aware that words are made up of letters, and those letters are made up of, more importantly, of sounds, right? So we're really talking about sounds here with phonological awareness. So if I say the word ship, right, how many phonemes in the word ship, right? There's sh, I, p. We've got 3 phonemes in the word ship, right? How many phonemes in the word hit? H, I, t. We've got 3 phonemes in the word hit, right? And then phonological awareness also has to do with things like rhyming, right? So shape, cape, and then car, star, right? That words rhyme together, and all of a sudden kids get this awareness that, these sounds are things in and of themselves, right? That I can rhyme them, I can break them apart in words, and we can count them. So they get an awareness of these speech sounds, the phonological awareness. Kids also get print awareness, so it describes the young child's understanding of the form and functions of written language. So as you're looking at this PowerPoint slide right now, and you see all these marks on this page, understanding that, wow, like each of these little things is a letter, and then a certain number of letters, there are words in here where the spaces are, and that you read left to right in our language, right? So all of that's going to fall under print awareness, the form and functions of written language. Children also have to have functional flexibility, which is the ability to use language for a variety of communicative purposes or functions. So school-age children adjust to listener characteristics. So we talked about before about how children very quickly in kindergarten and first grade start to talk differently to their friends than they do to their teacher, than they do to their parents, than they do to their brothers and sisters. Children are able to state advantages as a reason to comply. So why would it be a good reason to get your homework done tonight? Right? And they can say, well, I'm supposed to do it. It'll make my teacher happy. It'll make me happy. It'll be easier at school to have it done. They'll be able to anticipate and reply to counter arguments. So they don't just have an opinion. They can actually think about, all right, what's this person going to say? If they don't like what I'm going to say, and how can I give maybe a better answer? So if they want to go to the movies and mom and dad say no, but what if I clean my room and I do this and this and this? Use positive techniques such as politeness and bargaining and strategies to increase compliance. So I'm going to learn that if I say please and thank you and all this good stuff, it's going to increase the likelihood that I'm going to get what I want. They're going to start avoid negative strategies such as whining and begging, which don't work as well. They're going to generate a large number and variety of different arguments. So I can have a lot of reasons for why I think something's good or bad. And they're going to be able to control the discourse assertively. So being able to tell a story or being able to give their argument for something, and they're going to be able to state it, that, hey, this is the way it is, this is what I believe, and I'm going to really say it right now. Reading and writing. So a little bit more about reading and writing. We've got the alphabetic principle, where children must learn how the orthography of letters corresponds to the phonology of sound. So, right, that GR makes the gr and the graphemes, right? So that the letters correspond to speech sounds is the alphabetic principle. Now, not all the time in English, right? I mean, a lot of things, like the word grapheme, right? The PH makes an F sound, which doesn't really make any sense, but right, for the most part, usually, right, the letters correspond to sounds. We've got Charles' 5 stages of learning to read. We've got initial reading or decoding, right, where kids have to sound out each letter in order to come up with the word, right? So car, car, car. All right, so I'm decoding. Then soon we get confirmation, fluency, and ungluing from print. So all of a sudden I've seen that word car a lot. I can just read the word car. I don't actually have to decode it. I know what that word says, right? So we're getting understanding. We start to be going a little faster, being more fluent in our reading. Ungluing from print means I'm not just decoding anymore. I'm actually trying to figure out what the meaning of the sentence is rather than just focusing on reading. And that takes us right into stage number 3. Reading for learning the new. So I already know how to decode. I'm fluent in reading, and now I'm just reading for information, right? I'm not reading to learn how to read anymore. I'm reading my social studies book. I'm reading maybe you've got a story you're reading, right? 3rd and 4th grade. Your science book, right? You're reading to learn information rather than reading to learn how to read. Middle school and high school, we get understanding of multiple viewpoints, right? So I can read something and then I can read a contrasting opinion of that, and I can start to, read from multiple viewpoints. Well, what would this person think about that? What would that person think about that? And then finally, we've got college level reading, which is construction and reconstruction. We get a worldview. So maybe you read multiple texts on the same thing. Different people have different ideas about what it is. You're able to come up with your own idea of what that is, and you're able to write an essay, analyzing where here's what 4 people said about this, 3 people said this, 1 person said the opposite, this is what I believe. All right, so we can construct and reconstruct our own worldview based on what we're reading. Literate language, the term used to describe language that is highly decontextualized, right? So again, I can talk about things that happened yesterday, that happened a year ago. I can talk about what my goals are for next year, what I think, 5 years from now will look like. It doesn't have to be in context at all. Specific features of literate language, we've got elaborated noun phrases, right? So I'm going to add, I don't just have the noun, right? I've got more than that. So instead of, car goes fast, right? The car goes fast, or a car goes fast. My car goes fast. Some cars go fast, right? So I'm elaborating onto that noun phrase. We've got adverbs. So we've got words like suddenly, now, somehow, almost, outside, above, therefore, definitely, never, right? Words that are going to modify the verb. Then we've got conjunctions, so words or phrases that organize information and clarify relationships. So the word and, right, I'm going to do this and that, for, or, yet, but, and so. All of these things are going to give more information. And lastly, metacognitive and metalinguistic meaning. So when you see the word meta, it means sort of more than one. So metacognitive, you're thinking about thinking. So metalinguistic, you're using language to talk about language. So metacognitive, right? If you're using the word think, know, believe, imagine, feel, consider, deciding, forgetting, remembering, right? Those are metacognitive words. Metalinguistic words could be speaking, shouting, answering, calling, replying, yelling, right? Talking about nouns and verbs, right? You're using language to talk about language. That's going to be metalinguistic. I think last thing maybe is going to be form and content refinements. We get a lot of form refinements, development of syntax and morphology. So syntax, the grammar gets more and more complex. The sentences get longer and longer. The morphology gets more complex. So the words are getting larger and more complicated. As you know, words are going to have multiple morphemes in them. And there are context refinements, so understanding multiple meaning words. So, lots of words can mean more than one thing. And of course, now after I've thought of them, I can't think of any anymore. Right? So, what words have multiple meaning words? Star, right? If you're talking about a star, it could be a star in the sky. It could be a movie star, a football star, right? So words can use, and lots of words are like this, right? Ruler was actually the word I was trying to think of, where a ruler can be something you measure with, but a ruler can also be like a king or a queen as well. So just kind of understanding that, and that can lead to understanding lexical ambiguity, right? Where, all right, you've got to figure out which meaning are we talking about. Are we talking about the ruler that measures a foot and inches, or are we talking about a ruler that rules over people? And just the ability to understand figurative language. So right here we can talk about things like we can talk about things like proverbs, right, where we're talking about every cloud has a silver lining, right? Well, if you think that that's true, that every cloud has a silver lining, and that's in context, right? You're not really going to know what that means, right? But you have to know, that actually doesn't mean every cloud is a silver lining. It means that when bad times happen, something good might come up, which has nothing to do with really what we just said, right? And then we've also got things like similes, metaphors, hyperbole, all of those things, right? That the snow is as cold as ice, or whatever we want to say, that that figurative language is going to be more and more complicated, and being able to understand it and express it shows a higher level of language ability. And that is it for Chapter 2.